Here is the most frustrating feedback any high-performing professional can receive. And I want you to brace yourself because you may have heard a version of it. You are in an annual review. Your numbers are great. Your work is great. Your colleagues respect you. And then your manager says something like, you're just not to develop more executive presence before you're ready for the next level. And you smile and nod and say thank you. And then you walk out of that review and think, what does that actually mean? What exactly is executive presence? How do I get more of it? And why is nobody just telling me what it is? Here's the thing. That feedback, you need more executive presence, is one of the most commonly given and least explained pieces of career guidance in professional life. Managers give it without defining it. HR frameworks list it without explaining it. And the professionals receiving it are left guessing, performing a vague impression of authority without a clear map of what they are actually trying to build. Today I am giving you the map, specifically, precisely and practically what executive presence actually is, broken into exact components and how to build each one deliberately starting today. Let's go. Now, what is the real definition of executive presence? Let me start with what executive presence is not. It is not your height, it is not your appearance, it is not your gender or your age. It is not having a deep voice or an expensive suit. It is not confidence in the same sense of never being nervous. It is not rank or life. It is not personality type that you either have or you don't. Here is the most precise definition I have found, built from synthesizing the research of Sylvia and Hewlett at the Center of Talent Innovation, the work of Amy Cuddy of Harvard, and more than a decade of my own observation. Executive presence is the consistent ability to project credibility, trustworthiness, and genuine authority. All of it in a way that makes others believe you can handle what's ahead, not just what's behind you. Let me unpack that definition. Consistent. Not just on your good days, not just when you're prepared, not just when the stakes are low. Consistent means the room gets the same version of you, whether it's Monday morning or Friday afternoon in a tense boardroom. Coming to project. This is the word that makes executive presence a learnable skill rather than a fixed trait. You project through your behaviors, like how you move, how you speak, how you listen, how you respond to pressure. These behaviors are within your control. Coming to credibility, trustworthiness, and genuine authority. These are three distinct qualities. Credibility is the perception that you know what you are talking about. Trustworthiness is the perception that you mean what you have and have integrity. Genuine authority is the perception that you have the capability and the will to lead, not just manage. What's ahead is, this is the critical phrase. Executive presence is not about demonstrating what you've already done. It's about projecting readiness for what's coming. The promotion, the bigger role, the more complex situation. Senior decision makers are asking one question when they assess you. Can this person handle more? Your executive presence is how you answer that question without saying a word. Now comes three pillars. Research by Sylvia and Hewlett identified three core pillars of executive presence, and understanding this framework transformed the vague feedback into a concrete development plan. Pillar number one, that is gravitas, which makes 67% of executive presence. Gravitas is the quality of weight and substance. It's what makes people feel that when you speak, what you say matters. It includes confidence under pressure, decisiveness, vision, the ability to hold a difficult position under challenge, and emotional intelligence. It is by far the most important pillar. Here are some practical markers of gravitas. You pause before answering difficult questions rather than rushing to fill silence. You hold your physical composure when challenged. You express well-considered positions rather than opinions that change with the room. You show genuine emotion when it's warranted and composure when it's required. Coming to pillar number 2, communication, which makes 28% of executive presence. Communication includes superior speaking skills, the ability to read, command a room, assertiveness, and the ability to express complex ideas with clarity. Note that this includes both formal communication like presentations and meetings and informal communications like hallway conversations. How you interact at a team dinner, how you behave in a crisis call at 10 p.m. at night. Pillar number 3, appearance. That makes 5% of executive presence. Appearance contributes the least to executive presence, that is roughly like 5%, but not that it's still on the list. Appearance here means not just clothes, but how polished, intentional, and self-aware you are. The person whose appearance communicates, I pay attention to details and not just I'm trying to look expensive. The implications of these numbers, if you've been focusing on how you dress or how you look as your primary executive presence strategy, you've been investing heavily on the 5% and leaving the remaining 95%. Now coming to the 7 specific habits of high executive presence professionals. Let me get specific because the pillars are useful architecture, but they don't tell you what to do on a Monday morning. Here are 7 specific behaviors that high executive presence professionals demonstrate consistently. Habit number 1. They speak last and they listen first. High executive presence professionals are not the loudest voices in the room. They're often the most selective. They listen carefully, and I mean physically, visibly, completely listen. And when they speak, their contribution carries the weight of someone who has heard everything before deciding what to say. The practical habit is, in your next 3 meetings, deliberately speak no earlier than the second contribution point. Let others speak first. Listen with visible completeness, then make one well-constructed contribution. Notice whether that single contribution lands with more weight than your usual several. Coming to habit number 2. They communicate positions, not just opinions. Now, opinions are easy and disposable. I think we should do X is an opinion. My position is X, and here's the evidence and the reasoning that backs it, A, B, and C. I've considered alternatives Y and Z, and here's why I think X is stronger. That's a position. The distinction matters because positions can be challenged and defended with integrity. Opinions wavers when challenged. The professional who holds positions, who has done the thinking before speaking and can defend the conclusion under examination, projects the analytical gravitas that executive presence requires. Now coming to habit number 3. They are physically settled under pressure. When something goes wrong, when a presentation is challenged, when bad news arrives, when a hostile question lands high, executive presence professionals do not visibly crumble or scramble. They settle. Their posture slows rather than accelerates. They give the impression of someone who has been in hard places before and knows how to navigate them. This is trainable. I've covered the specific physical techniques in previous videos. The executive presence habit layer is apply those techniques consistently. Enough that settled physical composure is your default response to pressure, not your exception. Now coming to habit number 4. They own the beginning of every interaction. High executive presence professionals do not wait to be included in a room. They enter it. They do not want to be invited into a conversation. They contribute when they have something worth contributing. They do not wait for permission to take up space. They take it. This is not aggression. It's the settled ownership of someone who has decided they belong where they are. The entry, the greeting, the opening contribution, all executed with intention rather than anxiety. Habit number 5. They deal with difficulty directly. Low executive presence professionals avoid difficult conversations, defer difficult decisions, and manage difficult news with so much softening that the message gets lost. High executive presence professionals are direct, not harsh but direct. They deliver difficult messages with warmth, but without the hedging that makes the message unclear. They make difficult decisions without waiting for consensus to make decisions obvious. They address difficult dynamics rather than hoping they resolve themselves. Habit number 6. They speak about the big picture. High executive presence professionals habitually connect tactical points to strategic implications. They don't just report what happened, they say what it means. They don't just identify problems, they frame the stakes. This big picture orientation is one of the clearest differentiators between professionals who are seen as seniors and those who are seen as technical. Practical habit. In your next meeting, identify the strategic implication of your tactical contribution before you speak. Add it. Here's the data and here's why this matters for where we're trying to go. That addition is executive presence. Habit number 7. They are consistent. Perhaps the most underrated executive presence habit. High executive presence professionals give people consistent experience of them across contexts, under different levels of pressure, with different levels of seniority in the room. The person who is brilliant in small settings but falls apart in front of senior leaders does not have executive presence. The person who is decisive with a team but completely differential in board settings does not have executive presence. Consistency is what converts individual impressive movements into reputation, and reputation is what executive presence actually is. The most common executive presence mistake. Now let me give you 5 most common mistakes I see very frequently, because understanding what breaks executive presence is as important as understanding what builds it. Mistake number 1. Performing instead of being. The most common mistake or failure is trying to look like executive presence rather than building it. Adopting a deeper voice when it's not natural, performing confidence that disappears when challenged, dressing in a way that doesn't match your actual professional identity. The performance is visible. Senior leaders who have been evaluating people for decades see it immediately. Genuine executive presence is not a costume, it's the behavior expression of someone who has done the internal work. Mistake number 2. Confusing loudness with authority. The loudest person in the room is not the one with the most executive presence. Frequently the opposite. Volume is easy, selective, well constructed, well delivered contribution is hard. Alright. Mistake number 3. Needing validation publicly. High executive presence professionals do not require visible external validation to remain stable. They don't need to see the nod from the senior person before they continue. They don't need to check whether the room agrees before they commit into a position. Needing visible validation is one of the most immediate deflators because it communicates my authority is external, not internal. Mistake number 4. Inconsistency across context. The professional who has strong presence with peers but shrinks in senior company is communicating, my confidence is context dependent. The one with executive presence behaves at a professional calling, not at a peer average. Mistake number 5. Over preparing the presentation and under preparing the questions. The question answer demonstrate executive presence. The professional who invests 95% of their preparation time in the slides and 5% in profitable challenges is leaving the most important part to chance. Here is executive presence is not built in a day, but it can be built deliberately and measurably over 90 days if you have the right framework. What do you do in month 1? Gravitas fundamentals. Focus on physical composure, position holding, silence and comfort. Daily practice, the morning posture calibration, the deliberate pause before every response, one well-structured position per meeting. And how do you assess weekly? Where did my composure hold? Where did I waver under pressure? What was the trigger? Month 2 comes on communication elevation. Focus on the bluff structure in all contributions. Storytelling in at least one presentation per week. Question answer preparation becoming systematic. Daily practices. Before every important meeting, identify your single most important contribution and prepare it fully. The bluff structure. Weekly assessment. Did I communicate at the level of the room am I trying to enter, or the room I am currently in? Month 3. Consistency and integration. Focus on executive presence across contexts, with senior leaders, in informal settings, under unexpected pressure. Daily practices. The evening executive presence debrief. 3 questions. Where was I at my best today? Where did I revert to a lower presence version? What was the specific trigger? Weekly assessment is my executive presence consistent, or is it reserved for the moments I know matter? Now, executive presence is not a mystery. It is not a personality type you either have or you don't. It is specific, measurable, developable set of behaviors that can be identified, practiced, and installed into your professional operating system. You now have the map, the definition, the 3 pillars, the 7 habits, the 5 mistakes, the 90-day complete plan. The question is not whether you can develop executive presence. The question is whether you choose to the deliberate work of building it, and if you feel you require assessment, then let's connect for a one-on-one call. Thank you.